great. I mean, we hadn't actually screened it in front of an audience. We've just kind of kept it in our little
Creative
cocoon.
circle.
And yeah, it was great to hear people laughing as much as they did.
That was a really exciting part. Like, people were really laughing and engaged, and we heard a couple gasps, and we had no sense of whether people would get on the emotional ride of the film, and it felt like they had. And I also just watching it, because of my childhood obsession with Eloise, it was just this incredibly kind of surreal experience of just getting to be like in a full surround sound Eloise whimsy factory. It's funny, as a kid, I mean, I don't ever remember a time where I didn't know about Eloise. It was one of the first books I was given, and before I could even read, I would look through the pages and pretend I could read. And also the illustrations, which Hilary Knight, the subject of our film, did, are so incredibly ornate that as a little kid who can't read, you do feel like you understand sort of the completeness and complexity of the story. And I think I had a sense that Eloise was mine, just like my special friend, my special secret, my spirit animal, as the kids say these days. And then it's funny because in the process of talking to people about Eloise, both on camera for the film and off, I've realized how many other girls had a similar feeling about her, that she was their own property.
Yeah, and I think we wanted to touch on how is this thing from the 1950s still resonating with little kids today. And I think it's a kind of archetype of a girl without parents who is almost like a little punk and very unruly. And it kind of was a feminist icon or archetype before its time. And I think for all those reasons, it appeals to kind of fierce little girls and adults.
It's funny because there's a moment, there's an illustration in the book where Eloise is going like this. And that illustration, when I was like 15 and into reading hand-printed Riot Girl zines, I remember that illustration making several appearances, and I felt so upset that I couldn't actually find those and present them to Matt, but I was like, I promise you it happened. I guess that's part of the world of zines. They're ephemeral.
It's always a challenge when you bring to life the visual world of a visual person, an artist who has their own point of view, and everything in his life is curated and very controlled. It's almost like a tableau vivant of his mind. So for me to come in and impose my own kind of vision on that, I think was distressing to him in some ways. But at the same time, I think we made a good pair because I really care about making documentaries really visually interesting things to look at. And we hope that our film, in a way, brings to life his point of view, the way he sees the world. He wants to be making work. He has the drive that a 22-year-old would have, or even, he has a childlike drive, too.
And I think not only does he feel betrayed by the Eloise estate and by his experiences with that, I think he also feels betrayed by his own body and by aging, and that's something that is implied in the documentary, which is that being a man, approaching 90, you don't have the same sort of, and drawing being at its core a physical medium, you don't have the same powers that you once did, and but he still has the same passion.
And the desire to keep making Eloise projects is very alive. The first time I met him, he was kind of plotting about how the next Eloise book was going to be published, and every time I see him, he's talking about it.
I think we've definitely never tried to pretend with this documentary like we were practicing any form of journalistic distance. I mean, he's someone who became a part of my life, an important part of my life very quickly, and I have an incredible amount of passion and sympathy for his story. And so I wanted us to convey what is complex about him personally, but I wanted it to be an ultimately supportive portrait. And the good news is that when Matt met him, they also really connected. And it's funny because there's all kinds of debates in journalism these days about should you be speaking to every side, both, the victim and the attacker. And someone asked us at our screening yesterday, did you talk to Kay's family? And I was like, no, we've made it pretty clear that we're Team Hilary.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, the aspect of the story that isn't rose-tinted is that there's a lot of pathos in his story. He feels really burned by a collaboration he had when he was 25 years old. So he's at once kind of enchanted by this character of Eloise he created, but he's also haunted by her. And I don't think we shied away from that darker, more melancholic side to his story and to his life.
I think television is the place for women right now, and I feel so proud and happy to be a part of that group. I have so many friends who are women who are running their own shows and who are in positions of real power in television. And of course, Hollywood is an incredibly unequal place in terms of gender, in terms of race, and everybody needs to be trying to push the ball forward on that. But I'm very pleased with the developments, even since Girls started, with the opportunities for women on television.